Hi, bonjour, my name is Zoe Gordon. I'm a primary school teacher in West Lothian, and this year I'm seconded as 1+2 Development Officer. Last year in West Lothian we formed a partnership with SCILT, a primary partnership, and there were myself and 2 other schools that pulled together to come up with something a bit different. We were looking at improving literacy across languages, or investigating literacy across languages and how those links could be made, and we decided to go with a drama theme. So our ideal approach was to bring expressive arts, so drama, together with French to see what we could produce. So we came up with a series of lessons. We had 4 lessons for early, first and second level, and in each of them we explore the story of Les Trois Petits Cochons, the 3 little pigs. Obviously a story that children already know in their mother tongue, and we brought in French and different things to help them create a performance. So the end lesson for each of them was creating their own performance of Les Trois Petits Cochons within their class. Now, we unfortunately, due to COVID, were stopped in our tracks. We had done a very successful collaboration up to that point. We'd got together the 3 schools and we'd done a performance in one of the schools where we each had 8 people, so we had 24 children acting out this story in French, and it was absolutely wonderful. And our plan then was to take it to our own schools and further develop, but with COVID we were obviously stopped in our tracks. The resources are still available and still are useful, just they need to be adapted due to COVID, so that people were doing it just really within their own class and not using the collaborative function that we'd hoped for, where older children would come and support the younger children. What were the benefits really of doing this? I think the children got a lot out of it. At first they didn't believe it was possible to be able to tell a story or act in another language, but as soon as they got over that sort of fear of speaking in front of others in another language, and realising that actually they were all in the same position, in the same place, they really enjoyed it, and the feedback was very positive. Now, months on, I've been in to one of the schools. I was doing some work in one of the schools where we're taking this on a little bit further, and I was absolutely delighted to see that the children still had that vocabulary. The recall was incredible. They still remembered what they'd learned, and they could quote me their lines from when they did the performance. So that was very encouraging. What we've done with this now in one of the schools, we were trying to look at how we could bring in even more elements than just the French and the drama. So we brought in outdoor learning. We took Les Trois Petits Cochons outside, and they'd further developed their business, and now they were in property development, and they had to design a house that could withstand various conditions. So we had une tempête, we had la pluie, there were floods, there were lots of different storms and things, and fire, le feu, came along, and what did they do about that? So the children absolutely loved doing that. We also got them to make houses outdoors, so construire les maisons avec les ressources naturelles, so they made them with their natural resources. And then we brought in another element to it as well, the STEM side. So the next step we did was we gave them another design challenge and said, right, you've got to rethink this whole thing. Here are the resources you can choose from. What can you do? Basically they had to create something, and this was very interesting. They were still using some of the French language. We were bringing that in, whilst they were building it, like, who was the house for, Les Trois Petits Cochons, what we were going to make it with, and they were bringing in the language that they already knew. And then we tested their designs with the hairdryer, which was very interesting. What I think they learned through the process was their original designs and the things they thought they needed changed, and so we made them negotiate with us if they wanted to swap something and take something else, and explain why. So there was a great thought process that went in, but through the whole thing French has been in the background in that development of literacy. So it was a really interesting project. If anybody is interested, please feel free to get in touch with me, and I'm happy to share our resources, and if you want to have a go, that would be great. Merci.
Hello, this is a project that we have been doing with P1 and P4 in the previous year, relating to interdisciplinary learning and French. So it originally started that the P1s were outside playing, and they noticed there was a lot of rubbish and things that were being left on the playground. So we took the child's interest and we decided to learn a little bit about sustainability and keeping our environment clean and tidy. And we decided to also link that to French, because at the time we were starting to learn our colours and our numbers, so it really fit in with picking out different things like that. As well, we were trying to embed outdoor learning and the 4 capacities in as well. So we tried to link as many different things as we could. We were looking at the science of our environment. We were looking at writing in French as well as speaking in French. We were looking at questioning and working with the older children in order to develop our questioning skills. And we were also looking at technology. So throughout this time, the children were also recording themselves speaking, they were recording themselves collecting and creating this project as well. And I'll pass it on to Zem, who will tell you a little bit more about how we mixed the classes.
Right. So that was Sydney, by the way. She didn't introduce herself, but that's Sydney. I'm Zem. She's the P1 teacher. I was the P4 teacher last year. So basically, this is a project that happened at some point in the year. But at the beginning of the year, we decided that we would like to combine the P1s and the P4s. So what we did is we took half the P1s and half the P4s, put them with one class, half the P1s, half the P4s, put them with another class. And every 2 weeks, we had this joint classroom, which meant that for the P1s, because it was early level, they were learning more words. So when it came to language, to this project that we decided to do, and the P1s were interested in cleaning up the rubbish in the playground, the P1s with early level just had to learn the colors. So they were learning all the colors. Meanwhile, the P4s, really, I was looking to extend their vocabulary in terms of phrases and sentences. So what we did is, when we met up every 2 weeks, that meant that the first week I had my class, just the P4s, and we learned phrases like, c'est quelle couleur? And someone would answer, c'est rouge, c'est blanc. Or, so then when we met the P1s and we did the combined learning together, the P1s just had the colors. In the playground, the P4s would ask a question to the P1s as the P1s were bringing their garbage. So all the crisp packets were being collected. And what happened is, because we wanted to also extend the P1s, the P4s would ask the questions to the P1s as they were bringing the crisp packets, saying, c'est quelle couleur? For example, if they brought this crisp packet, and the P1s knew to say bleu. What really was fantastic is that spontaneously, the P1s were also learning the phrases and the sentences, and they just wanted to take over. So we had some classes where the P1s wanted to take over the questioning, and they were learning the vocabulary. So that's really what we did. And throughout the year, we were also covering food. We covered, what else did we cover, Sydney? Numbers. We covered the weather. And it was mostly really making sure early level benchmarks were met, as well as the first level in P4. And with the P4s, it was a lot of sentences. With the weather, it was quel temps fait-il? And then the P1s would know some of the weather, the greetings. So it was just a whole combination. And throughout the year, it worked really well. In terms of also health and well-being, the P4s and the P1s, we noticed, had a lot of confidence and self-esteem boosted. So it was quite a successful venture, wasn't it?
Yes,
but this was basically our interdisciplinary learning project, which combined science, health and well-being, the impact on the environment, and French literacy. Do you have anything to say, Sydney, to finish this off?
No, I think that was it. It was just really the confidence building and all the other language that came with it, because it was a year-long project that they did end up having to do other working together. Even though it looks like the language is quite minimal, that they took from it. There was a lot of conversation around French and just interdisciplinary as well. So,
Merci. Au revoir.
merci.
Hello, my name's Stephanie McLean and I'm a class teacher in Mearns Primary School. I've also in the past been a non-class contact teacher delivering our L1 French across the school and our L2 Spanish to our primary 5s to 7. For me, interdisciplinary learning is an essential element of the curriculum for excellence, and in the school I work, we use this pedagogical approach regularly. In one of the lessons I have delivered using an interdisciplinary approach was on Spanish culture and mathematics. The aim of the lesson was to learn about an aspect of Spanish culture while also bringing in areas of maths and the E's and O's associated with drawing 2D shapes with appropriate resources. One key element of the lesson was to integrate Spanish classroom language in an authentic way. We watched a YouTube video to consolidate this previous learning. Then we went on to learn a little bit about the Alhambra and the background and history to it. We watched a virtual tour of the Alhambra and also discussed a PowerPoint in which we went through some of the key historical facts, but also looked at some of the patterns and colours and shapes that frequently occur throughout the building. The main activity was for the children to follow the instructions to create their own tiled patterns that mirror that of the Alhambra. The children would have to use a ruler to create a grid and then a compass to draw circles accurately. Then they had to explain in Spanish what colours they had chosen for their pattern. Once they had finished their tiled pattern, they had to use the bilingual dictionary to look up the Spanish words for circle, radius, diameter, and circumference. I found this lesson a very successful lesson, as the children had never heard of the Alhambra before and were very interested in the history and the importance of the building. They enjoyed the virtual tour and were able to identify the shapes and symmetry that was evident in the building. And having already covered the patterns previously, they were able to draw on their knowledge of this and describe the tile patterns. For me, the main challenge came from the mathematics element of this lesson. Drawing the circle with the compass proved tricky for a lot of the class, but they all worked together to help each other to get through this. In the second follow-up lesson I delivered, I made sure that they practiced drawing the circles on scrap paper until they had mastered it before going on to their picture. They were keen to produce a display of their tile patterns and match it with the Spanish vocabulary they had learned. As I previously mentioned, in our school we deliver IDL regularly, so I quite enjoy planning lessons with my colleagues in this way. I recognise the benefits of delivering lessons this way, allowing the learners to make meaningful connections and bundle experiences and outcomes together efficiently. I also recognise its limitations in terms of the links and their authenticity. If you force outcomes and experiences together unnaturally, you end up with lessons that are where the learning is lost and nothing is accomplished. Therefore, careful consideration at the planning and assessment stage should address this issue. One of the key aspects of interdisciplinary learning for me is the motivation and engagement of the language learning. I find definitely increases and arouses curiosity within the learner. The Spanish cultural aspect of the lesson piqued their interest and it really helped engage them in the lesson. Spanish art and maths naturally linked together, and bringing that mathematics aspect increased their problem solving skills as they had to plan their tile design and ensure it met the success criteria. I think that the depth of learning achieved deepened through this approach, as many of the learners expressed that they were going to make other tile patterns in their own time and were keen to develop their skill of using a compass of their own volition. I will definitely be using IDL approaches in my pedagogical approach in the future.